Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the finals of the 5th Annual International Tech Strategy Business Case Competition sponsored by Ericsson. I'm very, very delighted to have all of you all here. After a very good 16 presentations in the morning, which dealt with what should Ericsson's strategy be in the sea of connectivity, the judges in the morning selected 4 finalists. 4 finalists who will be presenting right now. The teams that got selected to present in the finals are Team Madrid, Team Beijing, Team Abu Dhabi, and Team Santiago. I'm extremely delighted to introduce a very high-profile, esteemed panel of judges who will be judging the finals today. We have with us Johan Wilberg, Executive VP and Head of Business Unit Networks from Ericsson. Mr. Sanjay Kaul, VP Multimedia Solutions and SI from Ericsson. Andrea Timberlake, Customer Solutions Sales Director from Ericsson. And Rob Conway, CEO and board member of GSMA. Before beginning the presentations today, I would like to go over a few housekeeping points. Firstly, request all of you to switch off your mobiles, just not keep it on vibrating or on silent, but switch off because it could interfere with the signals. My second point would be please do not enter or leave the auditorium when the presentations are going on, because that could potentially distract the people who are presenting over here. And finally, guests and students who have registered for today's evening reception and dinner are requested to collect their badge from the atrium once the presentations are all over, which is at 5:30. That's it from me. With that, I would like to invite our first team, Team Madrid. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I am Kevin Dugan.
I'm Manisha Gupta.
I'm Tedrick Lee. I'm Dennis Peng.
We want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about the analysis of the issues that Ericsson is facing today and some of the recommendations that we've come to conclude. We are going to talk about, we didn't coin the term, but we're going to use it, navigating a sea of connectivity. Real quick, an agenda, we're going to talk about the vision, some of the changing business models that we have for Ericsson and how they can respond to them, the execution of this vision, the impact that this vision might have in a few capacities. We'll wrap up with a quick conclusion and do a Q&A. But first, we wanted to talk a little bit about industry trends and challenges. You can see that there is, moving with me clockwise here, we all know there is a decreasing average revenue per user problem. But on top of that, there's increasing consumer demand for services. It's putting a real strain on the network. We have seen that there's a transition to IP-based technologies. There's a positive trend of outsourced services by mobile network operators. But really what's happening is the traditional industry boundaries are being blurred and really eliminated. And that's creating problems for traditional business models. They're being challenged. And we're going to focus on 3 key strategic issues that we think Ericsson should look at. And those are the evolving service ecosystem. We're also going to take a look at fee structure to see how we might take some steps to mitigate the decreasing ARPU problem, and the role of the App Store and how Ericsson might position itself in that realm. But first, we wanted to talk a little about the ecosystem. What is an ecosystem? It's something that is not an industry. It's a blend of industries. It's where industry participants are co-creating value. They're capturing value. They are helping each other help each other, if you will. But we're going to look at a few verticals. First, in hardware, we have infrastructure providers, semiconductor providers, device manufacturers. Ericsson is positioned in all of these areas. On the bottom, you can see a little bit of a key and tell you the magnitude of influence each of these has in this ecosystem. We can then talk about software providers. We have OS providers, productivity and business software, entertainment and advertising applications, and of course, application developers, whether those are communities or individuals. Moving into the services division, where Ericsson is positioned especially well, managed network services, with a number of players here that we all recognize. We have some content providers, mobile network operators from all over the world, and revenue management, which is also an important service provided by Ericsson. In distribution, we have some app stores, but there's also an emergence of some mobile portals that are really delivering all of these services to this end consumer. And this end consumer He wants more control. She wants more choice. She wants more adaptability. He wants more privacy. There's a disaggregation of these customers. They all want speed. But what's further exacerbating this ecosystem are technology and regulatory forces. We know the bandwidth issues. There are storage, quality delivery, connectivity, things that need to be tackled. And the regulatory forces from the government, protocol standards, and international entities are further creating sources that need to have attention devoted to them. Good news is there's going to be even more. We have cloud computing, telehealth, machine-to-machine, cross-boundary competitors like Google and Dell that are moving across verticals. We think that if Ericsson positions themselves in cloud computing, especially in telehealth and in machine-to-machine, they stand to gain market share as well as drive profitability. In the end, Ericsson, we want to put in this quadrant. This is a matrix developed by Ian Seedy and Levine, and their article, Strategy is Ecology, but you can see the axis, complexity of relationship. We think if Ericsson can develop some complex relationships, it'll be tougher for industry participants to remove themselves from the interactions with them. And this turbulence and innovation on the far left here, this is good turbulence. This is innovation. This is keeping things fluid. This is keeping things moving. If they are highly connected to these players and things are moving, they're going in the right place at the right pace. So really our vision for Ericsson, if they can innovate and service deliver with all these ecosystem partners and participants and provide thought leadership, especially as it relates to telehealth, then we think that they can become a global navigator of this ecosystem, be one that is inextricable from the value capturing activities that are going to take place over the next decade. And to talk to you a little bit about fee structure, I introduce to you J.D. Lee.
Thank you, Kevin. The first reason that the fee structure come up with today is that there's a big difference in data usage among users. In case of typical users, 70 to 80% of time they're spending on the voice call. But in case of iPhone users, just 45%. The second reason is the fixed pricing model is now make operators considered as a dumb pipe providers. When you tackle this problem, we need to approach in two different ways. First, mainly because of the smartphone, data traffic demand will exceed the capacity, which means mobile operators and the network infrastructure providers will be handle this problem, like just increase the network capacity or restrict the demand. But at the same time, according to the Ericsson research, in case of the most loaded network, the percentage of utilization is below 10%, which means still increase the network utilization is still a big task. There's a huge imbalance in this problem. How to correct in this problem? We listed 5 options which we think the most reasonable. First is advertisement, which is added to the current fixed pricing model. Second is speed tier. Third is time tier. Fourth is usage tier. And the last, multi-device bundling. Of these 5 options, we recommend speed tier and multi-device bundling. Also, according to the Ericsson Consumer Lab research, consumers have a willingness to pay 22% more if they are guaranteed the higher speed. In addition to consumer perspective, Ericsson and operators can manage the network capacity here. The other recommendation is multi-device bundling. In 2020, 50 billion devices will be connected. We believe most of them are low bandwidth devices and newly connected devices. So it is very critical how fast operators diffuse those kind of devices. Also, we believe multi-device bundling will be a catalyst. It is also very easier to communicate with consumers than the usage tiers. Ericsson has great knowledge about the nature of traffic, so Ericsson can create a lots of metrics from this bundling. Next, Dennis will present.
Thank you, JD. And we're in the role of the App Store. This is the third leg of the vision strategy for Ericsson. Now, it comes as no surprise that the iPhone App Store has secured the success of the iPhone and its platform and ensured the viability of the platform with this one-to-many model. Now, what probably was not anticipated was how quickly this model would change, and as a result, the role of the App Store has changed in turn. Android has come up with a one-to-many model, something like this. And we can anticipate eStore with many would be something along the lines of this. Now, what is this? We have another ecosystem, another opportunity for Ericsson to establish keystone positioning, leverage their strength as a software company, develop key positioning relationships with business customers and consumers, application developers, MNOs, and the like, and expand partnerships to grow and nurture this ecosystem. Now that we've communicated our vision to you, how do we execute it? We believe that there's an opportunity for Ericsson to expand on telehealth in India. Now, why India, do you ask? Simple numbers. It's the fastest growing mobile handset subscriber market, and 70% of India lives in rural areas, and yet they comprise only 30% of subscribers. This leaves an addressable population of 550 million customers. And why telehealth? Again, to the numbers. $280 billion US. This is the projected market size of the Indian healthcare industry in 2012. 3.96, the average number of beds per 1,000 people globally. But in India, this number is only 0.7. That means 800 million Indians are without direct access to primary health care. And why? Because 80% of physicians in India live in metropolitan areas. Now, while I've made a case for rural in India, there's also an opportunity for urban India. While we're looking at basic essential health issues here and looking at emerging devices, mobile health, in urban India we have lifestyle-related issues. We have diabetes, we have cardiovascular disease, we have more proliferation of smart devices, and in turn, we will have greater proliferation of e-health. Now we need a partner. We have 3 major operators to choose from in India, and all of them have their pros and cons. But we believe that during this pilot program, it's especially important to consider this operator carefully because we have a price war. We have decreasing ARPUs. We have greater demand for value-added services and the like. So in the beginning, when we pilot this program, we want to start with Ericsson's global partner, Vodafone. We believe that there is an opportunity to co-brand. Although we recognize that Ericsson does have partnerships with all 3 MNOs, we think that this would be a good opportunity to get in, pilot the program, and expand to other MNO partnerships. This also creates an opportunity for Ericsson to spearhead what we like to call the Ericsson Health Consortium, where they can partner with like-minded companies to bring this type of primary health care not just to India, but to other emerging markets, to Southeast Asia, to Africa. You have a mix of people in here. Operators, government regulators, universities, hospitals, all become important, and as the program, the initiative gains traction, we believe we can build this network of partners as well. Now to look at a case in point, Nisha Gupta.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm going to tell you a story about Sita. Sita is 20-year-old, married woman. She has 2 kids and lives in a village near Chennai. She has a husband who works on a daily wage basis in a farm. Unfortunately, one day her husband gets up and he's shivering and he's very cold and he still has high fever. He should visit a doctor, but he refuses. Why? He refuses because accessibility to the doctor is limited. The doctor lives very far, and even if he can reach the doctor, he cannot pay. He cannot afford the payment. So, what can he do? He's fortunate that he has a smart wife, Sita. Sita had been to the village ration shop day before. What she did in ration shop is where our strategy lies. She exchanged her air minutes for the health credit points. Now there are two ways here. Indian government can ration the healthcare points and give to each family in India. The rationing system exists and probably exists in every village. Or if she runs out of her quota of rations of health credit points, she can exchange her air minute for those points. These points can be used in healthcare units across India to get medicine help. This solves the problem of liquidity, which is hard in rural areas, and it also solves the issue of security. So now she convinces her husband to go and visit this local village healthcare center and meet Ramu. Who is Ramu? Ramu is a trained mobile telehealthcare agent. He is trained maybe in partnership by Ericsson with other telehealth providers, or medicine providers, to use the mobile device or telehealth devices that may be powered by Sony Ericsson and ST Ericsson chips, and it runs a telehealth application. The application can be downloaded from eStore or any other store, and that's where again Ericsson comes into picture, and he can collect all the symptoms and create a record and send to the doctor in the district hospital. Now these records can be transmitted either in text-based or audio or video, and it can be transmitted using the existing technology and existing infrastructure, which could be WAN, LAN, 2G, 3G, or what have you. So the district hospital, the doctor receives the records, he sees what is happening and diagnoses malaria. He sends the prescription to Ramu, and Ramu does three things on getting the prescription. He enters in the system, which automatically detects and reduces the credit points from Sita's family. Second, he also delivers the prescription for malaria. And third, he also tells and educates Sita to monitor and maintain and prevent malaria in the future. So there is awareness which is going on. So now there is one happy, content, empowered Sita in one of the 628,000 villages in India. Now, how is this happening? The technology, let's talk about technology. Vodafone could be the connection provider, but Ericsson can make money here in various ways. Let's talk through the value chain. Sita has a mobile device. That mobile device can be developed by Sony Ericsson. Then the Ramu, he also has a unit, a telehealth unit. Again, Ericsson can partner and empower that unit by its chipset or its existing technology. Then there is records, which have the issue of security and transmission. Ericsson, again, can add value there. Then there is the storage of this record, which can be done in cloud computing or any other such infrastructure. Ericsson, again, can make value here. And why this model is sustainable? Because every partner in this ecosystem is monetized, has incentive. The credit units for healthcare that Sita is receiving is subsidized. The doctor now has incentive in the district level because he's collecting these points, and the more points he gets collected, the government helps him monetize and government rewards him. So in this ecosystem, we are saying Ericsson can make money by providing network infrastructure to Vodafone, can help by creating telehealth applications, which are ubiquitously delivered to multiple devices on multiple platforms. The devices and chipset partnership, Ericsson can partner with universities in India to educate and train people like Ramu, Ericsson can provide consulting and managed services to deliver economies of scale to MNOs. So I didn't talk about mobile advertising here. Why? Because this is a solution which is for rural India. But this is scalable. Telehealth in India, if it succeeds, you can go and deliver it to other countries. And you can also go and scale it to other things like telework, teleeducation, etc. So this model can only work if Ericsson provides a value proposition which is cheaper and convenient, an interface that is easy to use, a service delivery platform which is scalable from low bandwidth to high bandwidth devices on existing infrastructure, organization model that is based on partnership, and revenue and cost which can come from multiple sources as technology and adoption increases. With this, I hand it over to Kevin to talk about our financials.
Real quick, if you look at these numbers, this is a rough sketch. I can talk to you about growth rates. I can talk to you about some of the margins that we assume. But at the end of the day, you're going to see this is a $227 million endeavor. It doesn't make a huge land grab. It doesn't create huge profit. But what we see this $227 million as is a seed planted. Something to help propagate the upside of telehealth infrastructure, telehealth applications, and making sure that Ericsson has the mind share of the Indian consumer. They're going to leverage the existing mind share that Vodafone has with the Indian consumer. They're going to become associated as a thought leader. They're going to position themselves as someone, when telehealth entrants want to come into India, they must partner with. This is the small short-term strategy to see the huge upside that will come in about 6 to 10 years. So in summary, the fee usage, we think if we use a tiered and multi-device bundling approach, that we will see more profit and more ARPU. The App Store, we can act as a brokerage and make sure that we have ubiquitous delivery. And then if we position Ericsson as a keystone and have both technology and thought leadership, that they will be positioned well for the ecosystem and help not just capture value, but co-capture, co-create, and cement themselves in the ecosystem. Thank you.
Who wants to go first?
Let me just your last at the end. You talked about that the telehealth capability you're looking at is focused on getting the mind share of the Indian consumer. How do you see the relationship at the consumer level between the operator and Ericsson, bearing in mind that Ericsson today is typically not at the user level?
Well, we feel that Ericsson can use it as an opportunity to really brand themselves in a market that's going to be huge. It's going to grow. It's the fastest growing in usage. It's a co-branding opportunity. I mean, if they have a unit that says Sony Ericsson on it, Vodafone, they leverage what Vodafone has already, the social capital that they have within the community. If they can bring in the expertise of other telehealth providers, folks that can help train these mobile medicine men, if you will, then we feel that the Indian consumer is going to associate that first experience of telehealth and of real convenient administration of health with Ericsson. And we think that's something valuable.
So you don't see a potential issue where, say, a Vodafone or a Bharti would see that as potentially conflictive with their engagement with what is they would view as their user?
Well, we would definitely need to set some ground rules with them and make sure that we can both gain some brand equity from this. I mean, Vodafone would be someone we would initially partner with, but most likely go to Airtel Bharti and go to BSNL and then move that test market and the success of that test market into other Vodafone markets and maybe Southeast Asia and Africa. But it would be something we would have to set up in the initial agreement and make sure that we manage it continuously.
Okay. I have a question on the item on a fee structure. So what mechanisms do you envision for enabling this proposed fee structure? If we are to keep in mind as you stated, a balance between the consumer needs, consumer end, and the operator end, with Ericsson in the middle. How will these mechanisms impact Ericsson's profitability?
Here, our thought was Ericsson is in the well position, and it knows on its existing infrastructure what is happening. What I mean by that is talking about multi-device bundling. So in this case, if I understand your question correctly, you are asking that there is an operator who is providing connectivity to the multiple devices that user has at home, and how Ericsson is helping the operator to use this fee structure. If that is correct?
To create and enable this fee structure to function.
All right. So this is easy for Ericsson because all the traffic which is traveling on the network, there's the concept of intelligent network. So Ericsson knows what is the QoS of the data that is traveling on Ericsson's infrastructure. It knows that which device is getting connected, and it knows what is the bandwidth requirement. So here we are talking about QoS mechanism, which right now is not exists, but we cannot use tiered QoS system, right now because of net neutrality issues. But here we are saying that in this case, Ericsson is able to detect and create something like this home has 5 devices. And out of these 5 devices, there are 3 devices that use this kind of bandwidth, and there are 2 devices that use high bandwidth. The total uses of this home owner is X. So we help the operator and the customer first to decide what is their usage pattern. Once that is established, they can opt for that scheme, which provide them that bandwidth. However, if they add more devices in the future, or their bandwidth requirement goes, then they will need to change their plan and add more bandwidth and then pay more. So it will be based on the bandwidth uses and multiple devices. However, you can add as many devices as you want, or you can opt. The customer can opt on what bandwidth requirement he has.
In addition to that, Ericsson has 2 different aspects. First is for the operators. Ericsson should help operator to maximize their network investment efficiency. But for the customers, Ericsson has some kind of responsibility for providing better service, high quality service, high speed services. But there's some kind of balance between 2 aspects. So we suggest multi-device bundling can be an option. So it can create more network utilization for the operators, but also it can kind of some help for the Ericsson. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I think it was a pretty fantastic analysis. I mean, the vision that you've crafted is pretty relevant. What I got lost a little bit was, you described the e-store model, where the model that you were proposing was many to many to many, and then when you went into execution, you linked Ericsson to one operator.
Yeah.
So that is one first part of the question, and the second, the economics that you presented is probably pretty difficult to understand that, given the rationale that you built that whole economic model on. So if you can reflect on both of those.
Yeah. So we also had this dilemma of choosing one operator, but then this case was structured in such a way that one of our tasks was to choose an operator. Mm-hmm. So that's why we chose one operator, and we decided to go with Vodafone because Vodafone had this scalability, and Vodafone is already a premier partner of Ericsson. However, we do recognize that Ericsson is already working with Bharti Airtel for their capacity expansion in India. They are already working with Vodafone, and we know that they are already doing 3G rollout for BSNL. I mean, so we are saying that Ericsson can actually test pilot it maybe with Vodafone, and then, you know, if it succeeds, then they can expand it to all other operators. Okay, and the second part of your question?
Yeah, the economics, the numbers that
Yeah.
you came up with in the end. So how did you arrive at those numbers?
You mean
Well, there were a few sources of revenue that went into it, but we basically, I mean, the sales numbers, we only forecasted services in urban environments and devices in rural environments. We didn't even factor in any likely government subsidy that would come from the Indian government. We were being conservative like everybody does in financials. But we think there's going to be a lot more that comes through you know, some services in rural and some devices in urban. I mean, the reality is, say by 2011, 10 million in revenue, there won't be more than a couple $1 million investment in terms of what you're putting to work in hardware and in talent. I think what we're going to try to do really, or what we think Ericsson should do, is leverage their existing relationships and start to build this consortium. Now, the consortium we define more as thought leadership, but if we want to try to be a keystone player in a little ecosystem within India of telehealth, then we're going to try to get as many players involved as possible so that they can all get a bigger piece of the pie when telehealth does reach the levels that you know, may happen in North America in the next 5 years, maybe 5 years after that.
Great, thank you very much.
So first of all, thank you. It was a great job you've done so far, so thanks for that. A lot of interesting things you bring up here, and my first question really relates to you talked about the fee structure, and you did an analysis of the various possible ways you could change it. Did you in that have any thoughts on how to practically go about changing it? Because I mean, in the eyes of the consumer, and changing a fee structure in the market is always not that easy to do. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think. Okay, right now there is all you can eat model, right? You have fixed fee structure, but then we are thinking of saying that, okay, when your contract expire, you are required to change to tiered pricing. So if you want to stay as a customer on your existing plan, then we'll subsidize it by advertising. However, if you opt not to get advertising, then we will give you, based on the speed, the downloadable and upload speed, different schemes. And then the end customer can decide for himself what is his usage pattern and pick one which works best for him.
Okay, thanks. And the second question then relates to the healthcare example you brought up. You didn't talk much about, I mean, Ericsson don't really have a lot of knowledge in the healthcare area, and you didn't talk so much about how to gain that expertise and partners that would be needed in the field to execute on the examples you brought up.
Well, I think that Ericsson can paint a pretty clear picture. I mean, we didn't present the data that we've seen, that we worked on for a consulting project for one of your competitors, but there is some data that shows that there's going to be explosion in telehealth. That there's going to be a need for a network infrastructure to be built in the likes of in India. And I think that if you share that with partners who are going to want to capitalize on that, maybe some smaller entrants, maybe a startup in San Diego who provides, you know, a blood glucose monitor and wants to really push these units out, and you know, has a little bit more expertise because they're doing it currently in North America, bring some of that expertise to an emerging market and help develop this ecosystem. There's no question that Ericsson is not an expert in medical devices, and we're not suggesting that Ericsson should get into producing or manufacturing medical devices, but what we think they can do right now, because not a lot of eyes are on this vertical in this area of the world, is to position themselves as a market leader, as a thought leader, as the keystone that we keep touching on. But it is going to be, it has to be an ecosystem. It's not going to be an industry supply chain.
Want to go next?
Yeah, just focusing on the App Store for a moment. what's the particular advantage that Ericsson has by doing its own e-store? And should they be driving to make sure that reaches the user directly?
Address that. Well, as you're aware of, Ericsson is the 5th largest software provider in the world. So we believe that by working in the middle, Ericsson can begin by developing software as necessary, but eventually evolve towards a more of a brokerage role where they have the expertise in bringing together enterprise customers, for example, and operators, whereas the current App Store model that has been so successful for Apple is mostly connecting end consumers to developers.
And I can add to that. I mean, just recently at the Mobile World Congress, the 24 operators came together, and they're going to try to figure out a way to have these applications that work all over and become more ubiquitous. I mean, if Ericsson's not involved in something that's that important to 24 operators, then it may not be strategic. I mean, I think that apps have been proven to be important to consumers. They've driven the adoption of one of the fastest growing units in the industry, and I think they have to play there in some capacity.
Since you raised what's called the wholesale application community, which is what the 24 operators are calling it, what role should Ericsson play vis-a-vis them in this e-store process?
I think if they can provide any expertise in terms of interoperability, in terms of software, in terms of making sure that applications can be shared by this wholesale community, then that entire community is going to view them as a valuable partner, and they're going to remember that in the future. And just making it easier for everybody to use.
I can add to that also. Then we are also having this vision of ubiquitous content delivery to multiple devices anywhere. So case in point, our team was discussing of UPS. UPS probably has it already, but something that can be given to any of those verticals like transportation, utility, health, public safety, etc., where the content has to be delivered not only to your mobile phone or the device you are carrying, but n other devices which are running on m different platforms. I think to do that, someone needs to take that position, right? That position is open right now, and I think if Ericsson takes that position, then they will be the leader, and they can have that market power to build everything, and consumer to the operators together. Operators can't do that themselves alone.
Okay, in relation to your e-health, or rather the health application that you presented, and the selection of the operator with whom Ericsson should work, and you propose Vodafone. And I assume you know Ericsson's position in India in terms of who we do business with, what market share we have, and such. So specifically in relation to Vodafone, what competitors do you see for Ericsson in this particular space of healthcare?
I don't think we could deny that GE will try to compete in some capacity there. Are you talking about in this basic provision of, diagnosis of
I'm talking in the whole space of addressing healthcare. I know you pick some examples, but there could be a whole slew of solutions, and the healthcare vertical has multiple segments. So what competitors do you see overall for Ericsson in healthcare?
All right, I'll take that. So as Kevin said about GE, so GE right now in India has this what is it called?
Healthy Imagination.
Yeah, Health Imagination program going on. So what GE is doing is GE is coming up with this ECG monitoring devices, which are cheaper and built for emerging market. So there is now competition on devices, right? So that's where M2M technology comes into picture. So there is one piece where symptoms are getting collected, and another is where they are getting processed. Then there is the cloud computing segment to it. Like there are so many companies which are moving in cloud computing, including IBM, right? So then there will be, again, competition in that space, and India itself is a technology hub. There are companies who are providing services and moving up in value chain, like Infosys and TCS and Wipro. So there will be competition on the services space as well within telehealth. Then there is also, I think, managed services, which is infrastructure maintenance. And I think Ericsson is already a leader, but it is going neck to neck with Huawei and NSN, Nokia Siemens. So I think there will be competition again, because if this model becomes successful, there will be a lot of competition from those other operators as well.
Okay, thank you. How are we doing on time? Okay, so on the same token, what would you suggest should be Ericsson's partners in that space in India?
All right, can we go to that slide which suggests all the...
Sorry.
Go next. Go next. Okay, so in...
This one?
no, next.
Consortium, right?
Yeah. So here, Ericsson. So let's start from software developer. So here we can have local talent, local and who knows what local applications will be needed in India. So then local software companies within India. Bangalore. Go to Bangalore, go to Hyderabad, find people who can do it for you at cheap. Government and regulator. So here in this, we need to develop sufficient mass to convince government of India to provide subsidies. And also we need to get microfinancing by regulators in bank, etc. Here, operators, we are already saying that Ericsson should go with all the operators, start with Vodafone, and go and see what it can do. Hospitals, we know already that Ericsson is doing Grameen Jyoti, and they are already partnering with Apollo. So private hospitals, they can, but we are going a step forward. We are saying not only private hospitals, you need to involve government hospitals to make it sustainable so that it can reach to those 70% rural Indians. Then in case of research institute, I know that ISRO in India is developing mobile devices that can be used easily, and they are rugged. So you can partner with research institutes in India and find out what is right for the local market. Universities, we know that Ericsson is already partnering with IGNOU in India to provide awareness and some education, and which is essential if you want to make more RAMUs in India. So this is very essential that Ericsson partners with people. It's not only RAMU, even in my case, CETA, right? We talked about monitoring and prevention. So CETA needs to be aware of how to use her phone and what to do. So Ericsson here can partner with universities in India who are into this space and ready to go. So IGNOU or other universities in India. And then health equipment manufacturing, as Kevin pointed to you, that we don't want Ericsson to build those mobile devices or telehealth devices, but find people who can build for them and provide the scale. So I'm sorry, I do not know who are big, but I know GE is already doing health equipment manufacturing in India, so we can find partners like those and develop relations and even push our own ST Ericsson chipset in those devices. And then finally, NGOs, which Ericsson is already doing in Chennai with Grameen Jyoti. So it's a whole ecosystem, and I think in India there are a lot of people who are willing to do it. It's just that someone needs to take this leadership and pilot it, make it sustainable, and then boom, you are there.
Thank you.
Okay.